There I go again with that awkward little hello. You know, you can count on me. All right. Well, today, look what we're learning. We're learning how to let that shit go. This is what you guys wanted to learn today. You told me, I asked you, and you said that was going to be really helpful for you. So I actually have, now we're going to talk about this today in the context of relationships. But believe me when I tell you, this could be anything that you need to let go of. Anything at all is going to apply with this method. And so, but we are going to talk about it in the context of like intimate relationships, probably that we might be struggling with, a person you're having a hard time letting go of, somebody you can't forget. There is a method to the madness, and believe it or not, there's a reason that you're having a hard time letting this stuff go, or else we would just all be like letting things go. You know, how are we meant to do it? Well, I always think that the answer to life can be found in nature. And if we look in nature, it gives us clues on how to let things go. And the apple tree is a perfect example of this. So when you think of the apple tree, it grows big and gorgeous and strong, and then it grows its little fruit. All right. And like, what happens when it gets a rotten apple? It just lets it go, right? Just drops it. But the reason that you and I are not like an apple tree is because we attach to our rotten fruit, even though it's like stinking up the joint and not good for us anymore. We attach to it because of the meaning we associate to it, or the story we tell ourselves about letting it go. And so one of the stories that we tell ourselves are like, oh, well, like the apple tree would be like, well, oh shit, I mean, it is kind of rotten, but it's not as rotten as it could be. And maybe if I wait a little longer, it won't be that bad. And oh shit, what is going to happen if I let it go? I mean, am I going to get another fruit in its place? I mean, shit, what's going to happen? Is it going to hit an innocent bystander on the way down? You know, we imagine that's stupidity if an apple tree made up the same stories that we do, but that's what we do. We're like, I could let it go, but what will it mean? So we're going to go through a little process here called the DECIDE method that I made up, because you know how I love me some acronyms. And we're going to walk through this process. So the D in DECIDE method is going to be ditch the story. So first of all, if you're brave enough, what I would love for you to do would be to put down what you're letting go of today in the comments. Even if you're watching the replay, just put replay, and here's the shit I want to let go of. Here's what I want to leave behind me today. And then, you know, we can hold each other accountable and be like, honey, did you let that shit go yet? By the way, if you want a deeper dive into any of this stuff, I know this is surface level stuff today. I put the link up to consider how you might be able to partner with me and go deeper and really dive to the root of you and really just kind of eradicate this and pull it up by the roots for good. But let's do a high level overview today, right? So you can get a taste of kind of how we can work together. So the D is ditch the story. So I remember when I was in a relationship and I was like in my 20s, and there was this relationship with this guy who was like really not good for me. He was abusive in many ways. He was mean to me. He was not good, right? It was my very first boyfriend ever. And back in those days and throughout a lot of my life, I wasn't attracted to the ones that actually wanted me. I would screw that up. I would cling on to the ones who didn't, right? But anyway, he was really bad for me. And everybody would be like, why didn't you run? Why didn't you get out? And I'd be like, oh, I can't break up with him. He'll fall apart. I mean, if I leave him, he's going to like be totally lost without me. I mean, he'll probably like even try to kill himself or something. I mean, or he'll come after me. I mean, I can't get out of this situation. I mean, he's going to find me, or I told all these stories about what would happen. Now, listen, I'm not talking about abusive situations where you need help to get out. That's legit. That's real. If you're in an abusive relationship, please call the abuse hotline, make a plan to get out of there. But in most cases, when you're not in an abusive relationship, you're just with a shitty partner who's not for you, the story you tell yourself about why you can't leave them is way worse than actually pulling the trigger and saying goodbye. Do you know, I left that relationship after I told myself all the stories about what would happen and how he wouldn't move on and he'd find me and he'd never find another. Do you know he didn't even freaking blink? Do you know he had a new chick within like 48 hours? Okay, I mean, that's the reality. Like, he didn't stalk me. He didn't try to find me. He didn't like miss a beat. He found a new person to fill my slot. So what's the story we tell ourselves? It's not that, it's either story you're telling yourself about the person like they'll be broken, or they won't survive, or it's a story you're telling about you and your value. More than likely, it's not about that person at all. You're making a meaning up about why that person left. The reason you can't let it go is because you're making it mean something about your value, and it doesn't mean anything about your value. So I'm going to walk you through the process now, how you can start to detach from some of the stories that you're telling yourself. So number one, what is the story you're telling yourself about why you can't let that thing go? Start to think about that. Number two is I want you to examine your expectations. And this is probably my favorite thing that I help people do. Again, this is going to be like a really quick, high-level overview. If you want a deeper dive into this kind of stuff, good afternoon, Gorge, then let's work together. We'll do a deeper dive. But for now, examine your expectations. So let's say you're having a hard time letting go of something, and some of you haven't put in your writing yet what it is you're trying to let go of. But let's say you're trying to let go of a man, and let's just use a typical relationship, a husband that left you. All right. There's a divorce. It was ugly. He was an asshole. Things got messy. You got blindsided. You gave your everything, or a relationship that way. And so what you're doing is you're not dealing in reality when you have a hard time letting go of something. You're not having a hard time. Let's call this guy Fred. Okay. And so you're holding on to Fred, and you're like, oh God, but Fred, I really loved Fred, and how could he have done this to me? And how could Fred have treated me that way? And God, he's such a jerk. And what did I do to deserve Fred to do that to me? And if Fred could just see my value, and you go on and on and on and on. And not because you're talking about Fred, but because you're holding Fred hostage to husband. Okay. You're not dealing with a husband. You're dealing with Fred, all right? But what you're doing is you're putting Fred in a box of husband, and that's your expectation of how he should behave. And you're putting him in the puppet box, right? And you say, husbands don't leave their wives. Husbands don't divorce. Husbands don't cheat. Husbands don't blindside. Husbands take better care of their wives. Husbands put their families first. Okay, well, honey, you don't have a husband. You have a Fred. All right? And Fred, who grew up in a dysfunctional household, who is erratic in his behavior, who's cut off from his emotions, who doesn't know how to talk to humans, who doesn't know how to let people in, he's emotionally withdrawn, he's got a lot of baggage. Fred behaves exactly how Fred should behave, not a husband. And so what I want you to start to do when you're looking at the people that you're having a hard time letting go of, the things like, my mother never treated me the way I deserve to be treated. Mothers are kind. Mothers are sweet. Mothers are gentle. Mothers give you all the significance you need. Mothers are a soft place to fall. Mothers are encouraging. Well, you didn't have a mother. You had a freaking Sally. And Sally wasn't capable of any of those things. So the reason that we have a hard time letting it go, because you're going, a husband shouldn't do that to a wife. Well, a husband didn't do that to a wife. A Fred did that to a Jane. All right. So release your expectations for how people are supposed to behave in the role that you put them in. And if you examine them for the Fred they are, you'll go, aha, they behaved exactly as they should have. You'll take the charge out of it. You'll release the meaning. It'll no longer mean anything about you, because you'll be like, that was a Fred being a Fred. It was like, does a chicken freaking moo? No. Well, then a Fred isn't a husband. So like, the only reason some people have an easier time letting go of something is because they don't make it mean anything about them. Right? Like, oh, I let that stuff go. I don't care. I just let it go, because you're not carrying around a meaning about your value still. The reason you can't let go of your ex-husband is because you're still making it mean that you were a shitty wife or woman or didn't deserve it. And so we're going to get there in a minute, right? But so this is just step number 2, is examine your expectations. Number 3 is change your perspective. So when I changed my perspective, Yogi Bhajan calls a miracle just a shift in perspective, or, A Course in Miracles refers to a miracle as a shift in perception or perspective. Once you look at somebody for who they really are and stop holding them hostage to the role you expect them to play in your life, boyfriend, son, mother, father, wife, friend, and you release them from the expectation of the role you put them in and let them be the people they are instead, you're free. Your perception then changes because you don't go making it about you. If I'm walking down the street and I see a man in a wheelchair and I go, if you love me, you walk. Man ain't got no legs. It ain't about me. Can't walk because he can't walk. That's what you're doing when you say, Freddie, if you love me, you be a husband. Well, honey, Freddie ain't got no legs. Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying, please? Can I get an amen? Do you understand what I'm saying to you about releasing people? Yes, you do. Awesome. Hearts, love. Okay. Just that thing alone, being willing to look at people through the lens of reality versus righteousness. What's the reality of who they are instead of who they should be, which is righteousness, that'll change your life forever. That's one of the most crucial things that I teach people how to do is trade righteousness for reality. I'm not interested in how things should be. I'm interested in how they are. And when I deal with how things are, then I'm getting somewhere. Right? I'm not spending all day in a fantasy land. And that's what a lot of people do. They fantasize about a husband instead of dealing with the fucking Fred. All right. So, I mean, not to be so to be so blunt and bold. That's how I roll. So if you're watching this, you know that. So why am I apologizing for being myself? All right. So this is where the rubber meets the road, though, this next step. And this is really super, super crucial for you because easy to look at somebody else and go, haha, yeah, I see. Okay, I've got a Fred, I've got a Sally, I've got a June, I've got a Jimmy. All right. Even if you have somebody that's addicted and you're trying to change them and you're like, expecting them to play the puppet role of son, but they're really have a lot of other things going on with the reality of who that person is. People aren't your puppets, man. They're who they are. So the biggest gift you can give somebody in life is to set them free to be who they are instead of who you want them to be. Okay, that's humongous. I is identify the role you play. Identify the role you play. Not what's your side of this equation. That's their side. What's your side? What's your responsibility in all this? I'm not asking you that. You're sticking in there with this guy who won't change for you, or this woman who keeps hurting you over and over again, or this person that haunts your thoughts, the one that got away, because you're playing a role like an actress or an actor in a play that is your own life. You're not being who you're meant to be. You're being who you have had to be. What role are you playing that you can't let this go? You're playing the role of helping Helen. Or Fixer Fran. You're like, well, if I hang in there long enough, I can fix this. I can fix it. I can turn it all around. I can fix him. I can fix everything. You're playing the role of controlling Connie. You're like, well, if I could just control the situation longer and not long enough, and if I control everything and everybody, I can get it exactly the way how I want it to be. You're playing the role of worthy Wendy. You're going, if I just stick in long enough, are you going to see that I'm worth it? Are you going to see my real value someday? You're playing people-pleasing Penny. That's the role you're playing. You're like, oh, I'll just do whatever you want me to do, be who you want me to be. You're playing Veronica the victim. Bad shit always happens to me. You're playing a role in the play of your own life. Is the role working for you? Are the roles that you're playing in your life, thank you, are they working for you? No, Fixer Fran, it's not working. Wouldn't you just like to be Julie? Okay, wouldn't you just like to be Kelly? Don't you just want to be who you are? So realize that when you're playing, when you can't let something go, ultimately it's because it's feeding your role. And it's like you're winning the Academy Award. It's continuing to feed the deficiency that you feel in yourself. And so I remember I was in a relationship for 10 years with a guy that on paper looked absolutely fantastic. He was great looking. He had success. The problem was maybe he knew a little bit too much that he had it going on, and he had his own issues and was attracted to multiple people. Okay. It's not that, hey, that's your bag, whatever. But I chose him in the relationship because I had like a worthy Wendy complex, right? Where I was like, ooh, if I stay with him, who's like the consummate bachelor, he was like big on Sex and the City. He looked like him, and we used to call him that as a joke. It was like the ungettable get, right? Like wanted to be with everybody, but not one person. And I was like, hey, if I can get this guy to commit to me and I can prove my value, and I can chase after him and get him to settle down with me, then I get to win. I get to say, haha, so he would constantly break my heart. I would break up with him. He would cheat or find somebody else or do whatever. And then I'd break up with him. Then he'd want me. Then we'd do that dance of me running after him or him running after me. And I would but I stayed in that relationship because it fed my role. It fed my identity that I was playing, right? I was playing the role of, let me prove to you my value. The people that you choose in your life, you're not a victim to. They're an absolute mirror of the value you hold for yourself. So what I want you to understand is you can't let it go because it's still feeding this shit you need to eradicate, the real problem. You can't, people are a blessing. The asshole Fred that you can't let go of is actually your biggest blessing because he's showing you your stuff. He's showing you the thing that you need to release within you. You don't need to release Fred. You need to release the root. All right. Fred's the freaking fruit. What's the root? Right? Underneath of that guy is the real issue. It's like, why do you hold on to him? Because it's the thing, he's representing the thing you can't let go of. For me, as soon as I started to know my value and really know my own worthiness and start to feel like, oh man, yeah, I don't really have anything to prove anymore. Guess what? I wasn't attracted to him anymore. Isn't that nuts? It was like I was fighting the story. Like, I just need to let go of him. I just need to let go of me. No, I needed to like get find me, right? Get straight with me. And then that stuff happens naturally. Like the apple tree, you let it go. It's natural. It's easy to let things go. There's a purpose. There's a payoff in your retention. So don't play surface games in your life and think that you just have to get rid of that one thing to let go of. That one thing is your biggest teacher. Why do you keep attracting it over and over? Why do you keep repeating that pattern with the same guy, different face, the same situation? The root. People don't want that, right? Because they're like, it sounds like a lot of work. But you know what? You've got to uproot something one time. How many times you got to hack shit over and over and over again? You root it up, it's done. Isn't that so much easier? All right. So this is the root. That's the work that I do, is I help people figure out underneath the bottom of that, what's the role they've been playing and why are they playing that role, and release the role. I always say life is not about finding who you are. It's deciding who you're not. That's it. It's like you are a beautiful David statue, right? How does you think some people mold out of clay, but you know how David, all those statues were, Michelangelo, all he did was take a rock and chip away at the shit that wasn't David. And then David's exposed. It's like, so you don't have to create yourself. You have to expose yourself. You have to chip away at all the shit that's not you. But stop blaming the people you can't let go of. Those people are a mirror to teach you your greatest lessons in life, your biggest value. Stop holding them hostage in the role that you expect to play, and you play that role for you. It's like you only want the mother you never had when you don't know how to be your own mother. All right? You only want the perpetual pat on your back from your dad because you don't know how to pat your own freaking back. You only want the man that doesn't want you because you don't know how to want you. All right? You can't let go of that big rejection because you consistently reject yourself. Somehow, some way, you're still doing that. So you got to figure out how you're doing that. Is that making sense? Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Yes? There's a whole nother training on how to let go of people and not feel guilty about it. Because if you have a narcissistic parent or an abusive parent or somebody like that, please don't feel like it's just like you just like release them. Bye, mom. Don't let the door hit you in the ass. Is that life? Is that how you're going to do it? No, this is a process of unfolding and letting go. Let's be real here. Let's not put band-aids on flesh wounds. Let's not put red lipstick on and go out and dance all night and party and pretend we're fine. If you have a person like that in your life that you need to extract yourself from, it's time to hire me. It's time to go underneath the hood, and it's time to do this the right way. All right, not get the quick answer. Go through the process. Go through the process. All right, I can take you there. Let's move on. So the D is going to be declare what you want and what you're not going to settle for anymore. And so this is a very powerful thing. Just deciding what you want moving forward and what you're no longer willing to settle for is eye-opening. It's like, and not, what I think you'll do for me or what I want from you, what I want my mother to do, what I want my ex-husband to do, what I want my kid to do. What do you want for you? And what are you no longer willing to settle for? And then the last step is empower yourself. to deliver the thing you're not getting. I saw a post the other day on Facebook, and there was a cry for help, really. It was a young woman who was posting an application for a mother. And she was saying, now accepting applications, you know, that kind of a thing. And these things come up all the time, accepting applications for a boyfriend, accepting applications for a mother, and the things that they want. And the really sick and sad part is, honey, parent your freaking self. All right? Stop waiting for people to be who you want them to be and be who you need to be for you. And the rub is, when you start being who you need to be for you, other people show up out of the woodwork. As soon as I started to be my own biggest fan, I found a rock star freaking husband who's like, who mimics me, right? All he does is he's my freaking echo. That's what my husband is. He's my echo, not my champion, my fucking echo. All right. Whatever I say about me, he echoes. And that's true in life. Your people around you are just your echo. All right. Why can't you let go of that person? Because there's a payoff, because they're your freaking echo and it's what you really believe about yourself and they're confirming it. So stop blaming other people for the confirmation. You are the one who believes that and they're just co-signing your bullshit. All right. I love you. I know this is like intense today. All right. It's harsh, but can you count on me to deliver it to you? The real news, the truth. All right. Right as rain. Right as rain, right? Just healing rain, all right? Let it come, you know, why? Because I had to go through this process myself, you guys. There are many things in my life, many expectations I had of people in my life that just did not line up, okay? They were not going to play the role I put them in, come hell or high water. They were going to be who they were instead. How dare they? Right? But once you really start to look at people for who they are, you release them and everything changes. If you want to go deeper, hit me up, message me, go on the link and see how we can take this a step further. Again, this is like a high level thing. You're not going to, look, these videos are good, but are you going to change your life? And you're going to hear something that might change your life. You're going to hear something that changes your perspective, but don't substitute epiphanies for action. You could have the best epiphany of your life. I had a client today. I said something to him. He was like, holy shit. That put things in a perspective in a brand new way. I have that gift. I'm able to do that with people, but it means absolutely nothing unless you put some action behind it, unless you put some momentum behind it and do take some massive action with it. So what can you do? Did you realize something today? What can you do with that information that's going to take you a step in the next direction? If you've been watching these videos for a while and you've been called and you know there's something that you really want to get to the root of, there's a reason you're watching these videos. It's not scary to dive in, and it's only scary to like take the first step. You're in really good hands, all right? Once you come in, there's multiple ways we can work together. Let's uproot this stuff and get at it for good, right? Hope this was helpful for you. I love you more than you could ever possibly know. You deserve all good things. You are absolutely worth it. Stop sabotaging your own success by making other people responsible, okay? It's time to empower yourself. I love you. Have a great day. I'll see you next Tuesday.